Good evening, and thank you for tuning in to Mortal Dilemmas. Today, our story is about a mysterious portrait found by a family while moving into their new residence. I'd also like to thank everyone, as I've seen the subscriber count has risen to over 100, and I was thinking about doing a face reveal just for the fun of it. If anyone wants to guess what I look like, I'd be very entertained to see the speculations. Anyhow, it's time to get spooky, so enjoy the story and have a great evening. My family moved into this old house right before Christmas. There was an air of excitement surrounding the history and mystery of a 100-plus-year-old home. When my dad let me come up into the attic with him, he said, "Let's go exploring." It felt like an adventure. The most notable thing we found was this picture of what eventually came to be known as the ugliest kid any of us had ever seen, standing next to a pony on the porch of our old house back when it must have been new. "Is that a boy or a girl?" I asked. Dad scratched his head in the way he did when he was puzzling over something, and said, I can't tell. But I think to recognize all the people who have lived in this house before us, we should hang this in the living room. What do you think?" I agreed enthusiastically. So this hand-colorized picture and its ornate gilded frame went up in a place of honor. It became quite the conversation piece. Whenever guests visited, they would inevitably ask about this photo, and we took turns making up stories about the history of our house, the kid, and the pony. When we moved out yesterday, we put the photo back in the attic because, well, it seemed like the right thing to do. But I have to admit, that's only part of the reason we left the photo. Actually, we're all terrified of it, especially me. After we had lived there for a couple of years, our tradition of telling those stories was going strong. My older sister was the best at it. Creative, funny, biting stories that somehow always worked in. That's when they started disciplining their children with the ugly stick. My little brother didn't like that. He would tell us the picture was getting uglier every time she told one of those stories, and maybe we should stop, but everyone would laugh even harder. We were gathered in the kitchen one morning, making breakfast a few days after Christmas, and someone had put bread in the toaster that wasn't toasting. My sister, finding the cord unplugged, held it up and said, "Who unplugged the toaster?" "We never unplugged the toaster," and shoved the prongs into the outlet. She didn't even scream, just shook for what seemed like an eternity and fell back, lifeless. The smoldering toaster flew off the counter, but freakishly landed upright on her abdomen. Her hand was locked around the electric plug in a death grip. It took us the better part of a year before we started acting like ourselves again. Humor was especially hard to come by, as no one seemed to have the energy for it. It wasn't until the following Christmas I finally made a crack about the photo and included the bit about the ugly stick. There was a silent moment, and then uproarious laughter, and then tears when Mom pointed out that my sister would have been proud of that one. It actually helped us all move along to a better place in the grieving process. Another year passed, and things were mostly normal, except that my younger brother, now 6, would leave the room every time the ugly picture storytelling tradition got rolling, especially when I would mention the ugly stick. Normally sociable and friendly, he snapped at us one day. "She doesn't like it. Whatever. The kid with the pony doesn't like it. Can't you see it's getting uglier again?" And he started crying. Mom and Dad shared a glance and began talking to him gently as if he was still grieving for his sister, but he was inconsolable, insisting that the picture was different. Dad walked over to take a close look at the photo and scratched his head. "Honey, there's something weird. It does look different." Mom scowled. "Oh no, not you too." To placate him, Mom, the family archivist, pulled up a photo album of our first Christmas in the house, taken right after we had moved in. She scrolled through it until she found one with the photo of the kid with the pony in the background. She zoomed in. We leaned in for a closer look. It got very, very quiet. That picture on the screen was of an unattractive kid, but not really all that ugly, and certainly not angry. As a group, we tiptoed over to the photo on the wall. It was of an ugly, angry kid. This was not the same photo. Well, it was, but it wasn't. Mom scoffed, but her voice lacked confidence. "Come on, it's the resolution and the zooming. Come back here and look at this." And she pulled up a photo of my sister from Christmas a few days before she died. Oh, see how happy she looked. I miss her. Do you ever really look at anything in your house? I mean, really look at it? That colorful knick-knack that sits on the shelf, for example. If someone changed one of the shades of paint on it by just a little, would you even notice? Over my sis's shoulder in the Christmas photo was the kid with the pony. Mom zoomed in. It looked like an ugly, angry kid, and the eyes were looking, I swear, right at my sister. Then Mom put that picture right next to the one taken 2 years prior. It was most certainly not the same photo. Homely had become ugly and angry 2 years later. Dad, almost in a trance, retrieved the framed photograph from the wall and held it up to the screen. Even the two angry versions were different. In the one with my sister, the kid's eyes were set right, towards my sis. But now, in the framed one held by my dad, its eyes were set left. My little brother spoke. "Now he's looking at you," he said calmly, pointing to me.